5:39 a.m. in Orange County. We are with Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers, and we're driving to work because he says, hey, this is great. I can get one of my media obligations out of the way before I get to the office. How great is that? So anyway, thanks a lot. I don't know if it was exactly that reason, but we appreciate you letting us go on the ride to work with you.
Well, I think the best conversations are in the morning. Started with some coffee. I think that's a great way to start the day, especially with you.
What's your coffee of choice this morning?
Today is just a Pike Place with light cream and light sugar.
All right, so good. So you make this drive to work every day, obviously. It's about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you do on your drive to work?
Try to take advantage of the West Coast, East Coast thing. Try to call my family back east, my twin brother, Jason, and I, most of the time. My younger brother, Michael, or my dad. So I can normally catch my nieces in the morning, maybe before they go to school or before they go to summer camp. And so it's a good.
Where are they? Ohio?
They're in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, okay.
My brother and my nieces are in Pittsburgh, and then my brother Michael and my dad are back in Cleveland. So I try to take advantage of that normally. Other than that, in the summertime, in the springtime, I got some tennis lessons in the morning before work. I'd get up early and maybe take a lesson at 6 to 7, and that way I could be in at 7:30. But
where's the lesson?
Here? Yeah, I normally do it down here at Marbella Country Club or at this tennis club called Nellie Gale Ranch. But whatever's open in the morning, early, 6 o'clock, I'll be there.
Wow. So we got a little fog this morning. What's the weather like down here? You're not far from the ocean.
Yeah, you get a little marine layer, which is really cool. Sometimes there's this really cool fog in the morning. Sometimes you can see you can see it crystal clear on the way in. The ocean, you can see as far as, the harbor. And so Orange County has got that kind of that beautiful, picturesque landscape, and you've got the rolling hills, you've got the water, so a little bit of everything. But in the morning you can get this fog, which is kind of cool.
What's you've lived in a few places as a coach, but mostly in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So what's it been like relocating to California?
Well, we've kept going west. We went from Chicago to Denver, and that was unique because you're in the middle in Denver. There's nowhere to go in Denver. And then when you come to LA, my wife is from Chicago, I'm from Cleveland, so we had not spent any time on the West Coast. So I don't know what our picture of California was, but I think coming to Southern California, we couldn't believe how much it feels like home, how much family, how many families we've met that are like us and that have young kids, and school systems are really good down here. And my wife's an educator. I'm the son of educators. So it's been awesome. It's been, 2.5, 3 years that we've really enjoyed. And we've both been just so pleasantly surprised how much it feels like home.
I wonder, after you did this, you're a head coach after your first year. Tell me what you think you learned the most in your first year, and how do you feel you are, if you are, more ready for the job right now in year 2?
Yeah, I think when you wake up every day, you realize just how many people you have to connect within your organization that aren't even just players and coaches. And I think that, being in charge of a person's schedule and how that rhythm really allows people to be their best. I think every day last year, you're making a schedule for the first time. And what works for you, what works for your people, you're constantly talking to people about how you can do things better. And I think now, having gone through it once, you just have a lot stronger sense of what needs to be done, and you're a lot more ahead of things. You can anticipate a lot faster, make decisions even quicker, communicate it even better. And I think that's been something that I learned is bringing people together every single day and giving people confidence so that they can be as good as they can be. And I think now when I hit the practice field or I'm at the complex, I'm just a lot more confident in what we're doing and how we're doing it.
How long did it take you to rebound from the last game of last season, the last game of the NFL regular season last year, which obviously must have been a heartbreak for you guys and your team at Las Vegas?
It took a while. That's the toughest loss that I've ever been a part of as a competitor, for sure. And then to watch the playoffs unfold how they did, to see the AFC Championship game and then the Super Bowl, that was a tough month for me, as tough a month as I've had. And, but I think it was a good month for me because I got a lot of work done in that month, and I really took a hard look at myself, number one, our team, our organization, how we did things, make those after-action reports in all phases, and I got a lot of work done, and as hard as it was, I think it set the stage for, the type of off-season that we've had, and but it was as tough as it gets.
Ryan Tannehill told me that he, for the first time in his football life, he really went into sort of a dark space after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs, and he ended up getting professional help for it. I'm not suggesting in any way that you did or you needed it, but can football really sometimes send you into a really, even temporarily, very depressed state?
Well, I think when things matter to you so much, like I'm sure it does for Ryan, he's a starting quarterback, and they had a fantastic season. And then I think the finality of the NFL and sometimes how you lose, you can't help but be affected because of just how much it means to you, how much you care. So, but that's part of competition, Peter. I think when you compete, especially in the NFL, like you're going to sign up for losses like Ryan had, like we had. There's going to be these really tough moments. It's not uncommon to sports to lose, the most dramatic way fashion, and that's what gets you back going again, though, knowing, that you get an opportunity to prove yourself again, and you have to show that resilience. And I think that's what it's about for me, is when, one thing ends, the next thing begins, and you learn a lot from everything, and then you got to bounce back, and you got to come back better.
One thing about that game, probably even as weird as the ending was to that game, but I guess two questions about that game. Have you had any regrets whatsoever going forward on 4th and 1 at your own 18 in that game?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on that game and all the other games, I think as a coach, anytime something doesn't go down, you're going to challenge yourself and see, was that the best thing? And did I give myself, our team, the best chance to win? That was a moment in the game that I felt like we could take advantage of to really give our team a lift. And looking back on it, when we didn't make that 4th down, it had an impact on our offense for a couple possessions. Defensively, we stopped them right away, and I liked the way we were playing. But it had an impact on our offense for a few possessions, and so I think I underestimated what that could do if we didn't make it. But the mindset, I don't regret, but I certainly regret what it did for a few possessions for us. And that's obviously something that, in one of the many decisions in that game, that if you had to do over again and you knew it was going to happen, you obviously wouldn't do it. But the mindset of why we did it, I think in games like that, you have to go meet moments like that head on, and in that moment, I felt that's what was best for us.
How about at the end of the game, just the very strange way that it ended? It appeared as though at one point the Raiders might be very aggressive, and then they seemed to take their foot off the pedal. And it was just the last minute of that game was very strange. Is there anything in that last minute that you feel could have affected the outcome that you guys didn't do well enough?
Yeah, I mean, we had a 3rd and 8 in that they converted. It was a really tough pass on the sideline. Asante almost breaks the pass up. It was a really good throw by Derek. And then after that,
Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah. And then on 1st down, we got a really big tackle for a loss to make it, 2nd and long. And then on the next run, we're in an 8-man front, and we lose the edge, and we give up a 7-yard run to make it 3rd and 4. And they're just in that range where, hey, if they gain some yards, like they're in field goal range. And this kicker has made it from 56. He's 2nd team All-Pro. I knew that they were slowing the clock down so that we didn't have a chance to get the ball back, so I knew that was happening, but I couldn't tell if they were trying to get in range or if, they were just trying to be really conservative and careful. And so on the 3rd and 4, they've got Waller and Renfro, 2 of the top, 3rd down players in the league. And I wanted to see if they were going to try and activate those guys to get closer to finish the game, or if they were going to run the football. And when I saw them come to the line of scrimmage, I wanted to take a look at the formation to see if it was going to be a run or a pass. And when I saw that I felt like it was going to be a run, then I knew, okay, what I want to do is put our best one-back defense out there to stop the run, to prevent them from kicking what would be a super long field goal, an extra long field goal, which they probably wouldn't do given the stakes, and they would probably just punt it and we would get out of there. And then, when we put that defense out there, we didn't manage the motion well, and we had them completely outnumbered, and we just missed the tackle, and it went for 10 yards, and then they finished it. And so that's my regret, is that in what should have been able to get us out of there with a tie, ended up, splitting us on a 10-yard run. And that's what I've been thinking about, is just our execution on that last play. And, that's the tough side of things, having to live with that. And, I didn't do a good enough job. And, that's the tough side of things. And that's what's got me moving this whole offseason.
Didn't that game, and in many ways how you played the run last year, dictate a lot of what you did in the offseason in terms of going out and getting a couple of run stuffers, including Sebastian Joseph Day, your old defensive tackle with the Rams? How much did that game and the way you didn't stop the run determine what you did this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think it had a big impact for sure, and it's the way we defended the whole season, really. We got hurt. We were doing well. I think after Cincinnati, we were kind of in the middle, 14-ish, 15-ish, and then, we had some tough, injuries in some tough places down the stretch, and I think it just really showed the way we played in the last 4 games, and I think we just knew the direction that we needed to go, and I think we had a really good offseason. My first offseason, Tom, myself, the Spanos family, I felt like we got off to a really good start with our first free agency and draft. And then I knew that if we could do this, something similar, have that type of offseason on defense, on special teams in particular, Peter, because I think that what we've done on special teams is really impactful too, that we would be a better football team. We'd be a more complete football team. We were an outstanding offensive football team, and we were a defense that was kind of playing tough, and our special teams was not very good. So we knew that, in order for us to be a complete football team, that we would really have to attack, the defense and the special teams, and then make sure offensively we kept growing our football team around Justin. And I think we were able to do that. We were able to get Mike back on offense.
Mike Williams.
Yep, sign Gerald Everett at tight end, and then draft, Zion in the first round. And so we're continuing to build that side of the football. There's some big additions on defense with JC, and you trade for Khalil and bring those guys, Foxy, Austin, Sebastian. That's going to make a big impact on your team.
Why did you want to trade for Khalil Mack? What do you think he's shown you so far in camp?
I felt like when you trade for, if you can trade for someone of Khalil's caliber, you're getting one of the premium players in the league for sure. But I felt like from a team standpoint, he would fit in really well with all of our big time players. He would be an awesome fit in our locker room and provide what I felt like, we were missing, which is that presence up front. I think Derwin James is as good of a leader as there is in pro football. I think Joey Bosa is one of the top defensive players in pro football, but I think to establish a culture and the type of mindset, you got to bring in players who can live that, and I think there's no better example of that than Khalil. I saw it happen in Chicago. We were a top 10 defense before Khalil got there, and when we got there, we became the best defense, and they beat them. They've been one of the top defenses in the NFL ever since they traded for him, and so I felt like if we could do that, he would have an impact on the field and off the field. And through camp, he plays like how he always plays. He's a complete player. He's a fierce competitor. He's a great teammate, and I know I'm really thankful we have him.
Will there be a lot of instances where you see Khalil Mack on one side, Bosa on the other side, on third downs, going to get the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to set it up now. It certainly gives you a lot of options, and I think those two guys have had this really cool chemistry that not many people get to have in the NFL when you're talking about two of the elite players getting to team up. And I think us coaches, the players, our organizations being able to see that every day, and what competition does for you, how it can bring out the best in both of those guys. Because Joey's bringing out the best in Khalil, and vice versa. They're bringing out the best in Rashawn Slater. They're bringing out the best in Justin Herbert. And I think that's something that I was looking for, that Tom, the Spanos, is what we were looking for, is to bring competition to this team. And I know this training camp has been exactly what we hoped it would be so far.
I remember you telling me a story about Mike Williams after the last game in Las Vegas. And one of the reasons why you were so dead set on re-signing him was what you saw in the locker room after that game. What did you see?
I saw that guy that had nothing left. I saw a guy that he had nothing left, and the emotion that he had on his face and how much that game meant to him and what he gave to that game. What people don't realize in the comeback in the fourth quarter of that game, there's a pass on the sideline where he lands on his shoulder, and he was hurting. I mean, he was hurting. In that fourth quarter, those receivers were running a lot, and I saw him come back in that fourth quarter and literally bring us back. And then in overtime, literally bring us back with that huge fourth down catch. And then, he almost finishes the game in the end zone with a spectacular one-handed play. And, you just see the competitive character in this guy. And those are things that you can't really explain until you see it. And when we re-signed Mike, then to see his off season that he's had, you sign a guy to a big contract, and a lot of people wonder what's going to happen, but he's worked so hard this off season, and he's having such a great camp. And we want to surround our football team with guys like Mike, who work hard, who are competitors.
What's Justin Herbert done this off season to get better?
Competes in all ways. It's not just one thing, it's everything with him. He's just that gym rat. Like my mom and dad used to, kind of classify it, that kid in the gym that's always there. That's what he's doing in the weight room, in the film room, out on the field, his fundamentals. I think his command of the offense, the command of who he's throwing to, knowing each receiver, each tight end, each running back, and just playing so much faster. I think that's what you want in all of your football players, but especially quarterback. I think, last year he had such a fantastic season for us, and he led us, just beautifully. But I think now with his comfort level increasing, now he can be himself even more and have even more fun out there and affect his teammates even more. And he's just a very improved football player, and you can see it every day on that practice field, because I'll tell you what, it's awfully tough defending him. I know that.
So I'm probably going to pick you guys to win your division. Are you intimidated by that, or just so excited about that?
Well, your wisdom and your praise means a lot, but I mean, we're going to have to prove ourselves, as you know, and we're excited about that. I feel like we've got the right team that has the right mindset of proving it each and every day on the practice field, and every time we get a chance to compete. We get to go against the Cowboys today, and I know that our team is going to be ready for this schedule this year, and I think that's something that I'm really excited about. Is I like coaching our team every day, and I like the makeup of our team, and our division is going to be fierce. It was last year. I felt like last year it was such a fantastic division to watch. All four teams were in it to the end. Very well coached, a lot of quality players, and then
it only added Russell Wilson.
Oh yeah, and so when you do that, and then a lot of the marquee names like people know about, with like Devontae and Chandler Jones, and you bring in Russell, and there's so many guys that Denver brought in. Kansas City is they have a fantastic team and very well coached, and so it's as good of a division as there is, and we're going to have to face those guys for sure 6 times, but that probably more than that. Like last year, we said you're probably going to have to play 1 or 2 of these teams 3 times if you make it, and that's exactly how it went last year, and I think our division is going to be really exciting to watch.
So, the one other thing I wanted to ask you, just sort of strategically, you have kind of, in your first year, become known for a guy who kind of flouts conventional thinking in football to some degree, especially going for it on 4th down as much as you do. Has that changed at all this offseason? Have you rethought that? Or do you think you're going to play pretty much the same way you played last year?
I think our mindset will be the same of trying to, put pressure on people, force people to play us a different way than they would most people. Because I think the output of what we did last year offensively, and certainly our record and the way we played in a lot of big games, I think that allowed us to have a chance to compete, to be a playoff team and to be a world championship type team. But I think your team is different every season, and I felt like what I did last year was I thought I made the decisions that fit that football team, and I think that's what you got to do as a coach. Whatever type of team you have, you try to fit your mindset and your philosophy, your tactics to that team. I know that's what I was trying to do last year. But I know the mindset that I tried to create within our team, I know that that's not going to change, not one bit, because I want our players to know that when there's a big down, that they're going to be ready for it, and that I have full confidence no matter how it goes, whether it goes down or not.
See, I think one of the things about your decision making, especially on 4th down, if you made it on 4th and 1, if Austin Eckler makes 2 yards on that play,
mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you are Riverboat Ron reincarnated. You're a genius. Everybody loves you.
Yeah.
And if you don't make it, even though you made, I think it was 6 out of 7 4th downs in that game, if you don't make it, you're a bum. That's just the way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way football is. But is that the sort of thing you just have to be able to accept if you're going to coach that way?
Yeah, you definitely have to have acceptance that way. And I think what happened last year for me, and I mean, I've been a sports fan my whole life, as long as I can remember. You know how it is in big games. Like, we had 2 primetime games at the end of the season that were really, really, really the big games, and we didn't win. And there were some downs in there that, people are going to scrutinize, and that's part of it. you have to have acceptance of it. But then there were 5 or 6, 7 games for sure, 5 games for sure, 6 or 7, depending on how you look at it, where I know that we don't win. I know that we don't win without that mindset. Right. So what you have to be able to do is look at the entire season, and then, in those games that, everyone is rightfully talking about, just be really critical of yourself, and that's what I've tried to do. But I know that what I'm not going to apologize for is how our team played in those games, because our team played exactly how I would want them to play. They played as hard as they could play. I felt like they laid it on the line in front of the world, and it was tight. And I know that we're going to learn a lot from it, and I know that we're a much improved football team.
Last thing I was going to ask you. Think of where you were 7 years ago, and think of where you are now. First of all, where were you 7 years ago? And are you slightly amazed at the path of the last 7 years?
I was at John Carroll University, 2015. Yeah, there's a lot that's happened.
You're at a small college in Ohio.
And that environment is a lot more like the NFL than most major college football programs, I'll tell you that. We had 9 pro coaches that are in the NFL, 4 coordinators while I was there. So that environment was really special. To say I would be an NFL head coach, I think that would have been very challenging to predict in a crystal ball. But I feel like I always had that type of confidence in myself. The people who were with me at Carroll, they would tell you the same thing. And I've been very fortunate to be around some fantastic people who have, definitely brought me to this position. When you get around guys like John Fox and Vic Fangio, Ed Donatel, you get to coach with Sean McVay, and I've been around some fantastic coaches in the NFL, and in that same breath, the players in the NFL, I really believe are the people who brought me here. Guys like Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. Those are the guys, I think, in pro sports that really bring you to this moment, and I'm aware of that. I was fortunate to join up with some really special guys, and I learned a lot, from them, and we accomplished a lot together. And when I look back, that's what I think about, even at Carroll, all those players, all those coaches that are really important to me, that are special to me. And, I look back and I'm very thankful. But I think, to be here, that's why you're also just, how tough it is, to go from, I know what I went through. I know what that journey was like. And it wasn't just some meteoric path. There was a lot before I got to the NFL that was happening that, allowed me to get here. And, and there's a lot of work to do now. Now that you're here, it's not a destination. There's so much to do. And, and that's why I got to get going.
Have a good year.
It's so good to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Appreciate you doing this. This was fun.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.